people in as they start trickling in.
Okay, awesome. All right, well, super fun to see you all. Welcome to NoCo 2020. That's what we have dubbed it, No Coast Walk, Oregon. Unprecedented, like so many other things. Glad you could join us tonight. I hope that all your loved ones are safe, and I'm glad that you are all safe. And I know that we are all having heavy hearts right now, and sending our love out to all of our Oregonians in need right now. So thanks for being with me and all of us together in that tonight. So our presentation is, sort of in lieu of Coast Walk, and most of you are Coast Walkers and you know what Coast Walk is, but not everybody's was a Coast Walker, or some of you maybe this was going to be your first one, and so that's a bummer. And but we will do it again. And so I'll just tell everybody real quick what Coast Walk is. Oh, maybe I should even introduce myself. I'm Katie Volpe. I'm the executive director with the North Coast Land Conservancy. And what Coast Walk is a fundraiser. We conceived of it, quite a few years ago. We were at a stage where it was like, oh gosh, we really have to do a fundraising event. We need to raise more funds, and there's a point in a nonprofit's, life where you start thinking about like, oh, I gotta do the event. And we were pretty resistant to galas and that kind of thing, because we like hiking and walking in the woods alone and chatting quietly with friends while listening to birds outside. And so as we started talking about what this fundraising event would be, it was like, well, we could hike. That's what we could do. And of course, Bonnie Henderson, who you all are going to hear from, has hiked the whole Oregon coast and written a book about it. And so, once we landed on that, it was like, we got everything we need for like the best event ever. And the first year was put together, pretty quickly and still a blast. And many of you, did all 4 years with us and might come back and do it again. So it's been a great fundraiser. And what the funds do is help to promote land conservation on the Oregon coast. And so all of that coast that you're hiking, is within our service area, and you walk past, some of the most special places in the world, and some of the places that NCLC works to preserve and protect and care for. And so that's what Coast Walk is all about. And for all of you, thank you so much. This year with No Coast Walk, so many of you chose to give your registration to us, knowing that we would still need the funds. And I just can't tell you how much that warmed our heart, particularly because we're so nervous about what's going on in the world. And to see that come through from you all just really has incredibly lifted our spirits and also kept us solid. So thank you so much for, still being a great Coast Walk supporter that way. We are looking at Coast Walk for next year, and we have tentative dates that I apparently didn't write down in my notes. I bet Bonnie knows them.
We're tentatively September 10, 11, and 12, but we won't really be able to confirm that until after the first of the year.
And so if you want to, you might want to rough that in. We have some thoughts about ways we can do it, sort of if we have to, be distant or not. And so we're looking at that and feeling pretty good about that we will be able to provide some version of actual Coast Walk next year. So so that's exciting too. That felt good to have some creative thinking around that. And so let's see what else is going on. Oh, a couple more things before I introduce our presenter. This weekend we had talked about a virtual coast walk where you might be walking on the coast and taking pictures and sharing them. And we had these hashtags for social media that we were thinking, oh yeah, go, you know, hike on the coast anyway and share it, and we can just all sort of vicariously hike together. Probably hiking on the coast this weekend is a pretty bad idea with the air quality, and so likely that's not going to happen, but we still have these tags, and so when the air does clear and you're hiking on the coast, we would love to see your pictures and just see the places that you've been. So we'll share these again towards the end of the presentation. And then at the end of the presentation, you'll want to stick around because we're going to have a few trivia questions, and there'll be prizes, and it's Coast Walk related. And so stick around to the end, and it's just for, you know, quick little trivia questions. So that'll be fun. And so let's see, Lynette, Bonnie, did I forget anything before?
I would just say, you know, you can, if you do virtual coast walk, and we'd love to see where you're hiking. It doesn't matter even if at the coast or anywhere. And if the air quality is still bad this weekend, you know, let us know where you're hiking next week when the air clears up.
All right, thanks, yeah. Okay, so Bonnie is going to give a presentation. Bonnie was going to be giving this presentation potentially as a part of Coast Walk along the way. And I had the pleasure of hearing this presentation. It was quite a few years ago now. And it's such a great one. And so I am very happy to introduce Bonnie Henderson. She is North Coast Land Conservancy's communications coordinator. She also essentially is our Coast Walk organizer volunteer. Always been a big fan of North Coast Land Conservancy and big fan of the Oregon coast. Has hiked the Oregon Coast Trail and written books about it, and other, you know, wonderful award-winning books also. So it is my pleasure to introduce the wonderful Bonnie Henderson. Take it away.
Hello. All right, I'm just going to get my screen shared here, and we'll start talking. Okay, y'all see those two faces? Hopefully. I love this picture because it kind of, to me, expresses the joy of hiking the Oregon Coast Trail, and also the, where is the trail? Where do we go here? I want to just, before I get started, I want to give a couple of shout outs, because I know some people who actually have hiked the OCT in one way or another. It's been a very weird year and almost impossible to hike the Oregon Coast Trail because of state park closures and that kind of thing. But I think Cheryl Lund is here. Woo woo, Cheryl, for her 60th birthday, she got a hotel room in Yachats and did day hiked 60 miles on between Florence and Lincoln City. So she's like almost halfway down the Oregon Coast Trail, having done 4 years of Coast Walk. I was going to give a shout out to Donna Skurlock, who's on too, but I realized she actually nearly finished the Oregon Coast Trail last year. So she doesn't get credit for this year, but that was cool. Another person who's on is Brandon Tigner, extremely important person to the Oregon Coast Trail. He is the North Coast Stewardship Coordinator of Trail Keepers of Oregon, which is sort of becoming the maintenance and trail building arm for the Oregon Coast Trail. And he and his wife, Alex, just finished a scouting and trail assessment survey of the entire Oregon Coast Trail, also known as they spent their honeymoon hiking the Oregon Coast Trail. So congratulations, Brandon and Alex. So I'm just going to start you down the Oregon coast. I'm going to talk a little bit about the history, but mostly I'm going to talk about what I think people are more interested in, which is how do you hike this sections or the whole thing, this rather unusual trail. So first of all, I really think the Oregon Coast Trail is one of the world's great trails. Not that I've hiked them all, but the weather's good for the most part. The scenery is unbelievable. It's got some glitches, but it's just a fabulous trail. It is a border-to-border hiking trail, literally from the Columbia River to California border. Starts in the north. I'll explain that in a little bit. It takes less than a month to hike. You would think you could take as long as you want, but it's you kind of have to hike some long days just because there are some limitations in where you can camp. So most people get it done in less than a month. I'm going to do a little bit of history, and let me just start with the fact that people have been walking something like the Oregon Coast Trail for thousands of years, basically about 6,000 years, which is about when the sea level rose to its current level after most of the ice of the poles had melted after the last ice age. So during the last ice age, the sea level was about 450 feet lower than it is now. So it took a number of years before the sea level rose and the Oregon shoreline got to where it is today. And that was, paleogeologists think, about 6,000 years ago. So that's about how long people have been hiking some version of the Oregon Coast Trail. But the OCT, our modern concept of it, really is the foundation of it is Oregon's 262 miles of publicly accessible sandy beach. The Oregon Coast Trail is not really so much a trail as a route. About half of it is literally on the beach itself. So half of it isn't even a trail, it's just walking down the beach. Another quarter is hiking on trails, mostly over headlands between the beaches. And then there's another quarter of it that is on roads, but about half of those roads are very quiet back roads with little or no traffic at all. So they're kind of like trails. And then that last little eighth right now is places where you've got to hike on the highway shoulder. But I want to stop and just talk about, whoops, I missed a slide here. Here's the South Jetty where you start the Oregon Coast Trail. I want to talk about the highway sections a little bit because it's not very well understood. I think I have had people ask me if the Oregon Coast Trail just follows US 101. No, no one would hike it if it did. I've actually had someone tell me that it just follows US 101, which was kind of weird. I read a blog from a hiker I met on the Oregon Coast Trail last summer, met him in Newport. He and his wife were hiking it, and I later read his blog, and it said 40% of the Oregon Coast Trail is on the highway. And this just kind of made me sad because this is a guy who didn't really have a lot of maps and very good guidance. And if you don't have good guidance, you could very easily end up on the highway way too much. You kind of need some maps or guidance to know where you can get back on the beach, that kind of thing. Most of the highway walking also is very short stretches, just like in this picture. You walk down the beach in front of Newport, you get off at the North Jetty of Uquinta Bay, you walk up, you get on this bridge, cross Uquinta Bay on the highway bridge, immediately get off it, walk out the South Jetty, and you're back on the beach. So that is a highway walking stretch, but it's actually just a way to get across a bay. So, and in fact, the only highway walking stretch, if you are careful and watch the tides and are able to get a ride across to Bay Ocean Spit from Garibaldi, the only highway walking stretch in the first 100 miles of the Oregon Coast Trail is about a half mile in North Seaside to cross the Nicanicum. So there actually is not that much highway walking. There are some long stretches, really each in the north, middle, and south coast. There are some long stretches, but every year there's a little bit less, more trail gets built and people get off the highway more. So tiny bit of history. This guy, Sam Dicken, is really the person responsible for the modern concept of the Oregon Coast Trail. He was a geographer at the U of O, what his peers called a muddy boots geographer, somebody who liked to get out and walk the land and not just stay inside looking at maps and statistics and things. He liked to get out and see what's up. And apparently in the late 50s, he was down looking at some land that the state had acquired north of Brookings, this little narrow stretch of shoreline between the highway and the coastline, very narrow, but it's forested, so you can't see the coastline from the highway. And he got down there and is looking around and realizing this is an incredible shoreline. I mean, it's got these arch rocks, these natural bridges, incredible little secret beaches. This is what is now Boardman State Scenic Corridor. It was gorgeous, but there was no way to get out and see it. And he thought, well, obviously the state needs to make this a park and build trails. And then he realized, you know, actually there's already a lot of trail on the Oregon coast. Oregon's beaches had already been declared public highways in 1913. So even before the Oregon Beach Bill in the 60s, we had these public beaches. And he realized it really wouldn't take that much to build enough trail that you could more or less walk the entire Oregon coast. So he started trying to sell this idea, and in the early 60s, but nothing really much happened until 1971, when the state legislature passed the Oregon Recreational Trail System Act. And that put some money and planning resources behind this and other trail ideas. And state started building link trails. And by 1966, I'm sorry, by 1988, the state declared the Oregon Coast Trail hikeable. It wasn't really complete. It's still not really technically complete if you consider that you still have to walk portions of on the highway shoulder, but it was hikeable. Not really very many people hiked it for the first couple of decades. I first hiked the whole thing about a dozen years ago, and I did not meet a single other through hiker. I met a few people who were hacking sections, but no one who's hiking the whole thing at all. And then something happened in 2017. By then, the Pacific Crest Trail popularity had just really taken off. Jean, these are all Jean's pictures. There she is laughing. That there were just so many more people on the Pacific Crest Trail, but that summer, there was really high snow in the Sierra in like June, and then by July, there were wildfires in the Oregon Cascades. It was a bad year, and people started peeling off the Pacific Crest Trail, communicating by social media, and heading over to the Oregon Coast Trail. Jean, who's on this call, I got a call from her one day, and she said, Bonnie, I'm on the dunes, and I'm looking north, and I see 5 groups of hikers hiking down the beach right now. And I'm like, 5 hikers? And she's like, no, 5 groups of hikers. We'd never seen anything like it before. So that was really the year that the Oregon Coast Trail took off. And last year, when I hiked it, I just want to share with you, we met so many people, almost no one from Oregon. This guy was from Germany, met him in front of Camp Rylea. These guys from New Zealand, hiking. These are people hiking the whole thing. These guys, this is a guy who said it was 40% on the highway. He needed to get better information. Met him at South Beach down by Newport. This is her trail name's Deirdre. I forget where she's from, but it wasn't Oregon. We met her at Heceta Head down north of Florence. So right now there is a planning process going on called the Oregon Coast Trail Action Plan, where a bunch of partners are trying to identify important gaps and figure out how we can go forward and not necessarily fix them right away, but look at some paths forward to try to get people off the highway more and complete it a little bit more. So there are these gaps, but it's very hikeable. But I'm going to go through a few things that are the main things you need to think about and not worry about when you're planning a multi-day trip on the Oregon Coast Trail. And the ways that the OCT really is quite different maybe from some other hikes, long hikes that you've made, other backpack trips. And this is the first point. It really is a north to south trail. People hike it south to north, but I don't think they have a very good time. And it's really not a good idea. The wind is very steady in the summer from the north. Often it's blowing 10 to 15 miles per hour all day, day after day. And it's a lot more fun if you can hike it north to south. So I strongly urge anybody to do it in that direction. The other thing is the season. People often ask me what is the right time of year to hike the Oregon Coast Trail. And weather-wise, obviously it's better, let's say spring through September. It's not too, can be okay in April and May, better in June, and sometime in October, it can be earlier, it can be late, the storms start. So in that window is where you want to be hiking weather-wise. But the most important thing, especially in the South Coast, are rivers on the Oregon Coast Trail. And in the north, there are often places where you can get off the beach and use a road bridge of some kind and get around a river. Like, I mean, even in Canada Beach is a great example. You can just leave the beach at Les Shirley Park, walk across the bridge over Ecola Creek and get back on the beach if you didn't want to cross Ecola Creek. But there are other rivers and creeks, especially on the South Coast, where there's really no good alternative. You're a long way from the highway and you kind of gotta either ford that river or do a big backtrack to get back to the highway. So the river levels to me are really the deciding factor, and they're typically, you know, obviously it depends, but by early or mid-June, the rivers are as low as they're gonna get, and they're there until the rain starts sometime in October. So it's less of a factor on the North Coast, but especially if you're gonna do the whole thing, you kind of wanna not be on the South Coast crossing those rivers until June-ish. Oops, tides. Yeah, I want to talk about tides here too. So this is New River on the South Coast. That is an example of the kind of river that you really can't cross until late spring, early summer, and you have to cross it at low tide because it just gets too high. One of the creeks on the South Coast, Talkinich Creek, which sounds pretty benign, it's just a creek, not a river. But I met some other hiker last summer, and we told them you might want to aim at hitting that at low tide. And we ran into them later, and they said, "Yeah, you definitely have to cross that at low tide." She said, "We saw seals," and I'm like, okay, seals aren't really dangerous. I wouldn't really worry about seals. No, she said, no, there were seals in the creek. I mean, it filled up enough that seals were swimming in it. They could not cross it. They had to wait till low tide to get across, not Talkinich, but 10 Mile Creek. So this is, and then the other thing you need to be thinking about on the Oregon Coast Trail, obviously, is tides, not something you typically have to think of. Almost everywhere the beach is wide enough in summer that you don't have to worry about it just walking down the beach. But there are several spots where you have to get around a headland, and you can only do it at low tide or at low to mid tide. You know, one example is Hug Point. Obviously, you need to be there usually within about an hour of low tide. Again, there's an alternative. You can get off the beach before that and at Arcadia and walk on the highway for a mile, but that's not that much fun. So you do want to be aware of the tides so that you can hit river mouths and get around headlands each as much as possible, which to me is the goal of a hike on the Oregon Coast Trail. And I'm seeing my internet connection is unstable, so I hope that's not an issue. These are our friends at Sea Level Bakery. I want to talk about food. Food is very different on the Oregon Coast Trail from probably any other backpacking trip you've taken. I remember a few years ago, I was contacted by a woman from Wisconsin who had hiked the whole Oregon Coast Trail, and she said she gained weight on the Oregon Coast Trail. Usually you expect to lose weight on a 400-mile backpacking trip. Another hiker I met who had hiked the Pacific Crest Trail, she calls the OCT up and have coffee. You definitely don't need to create food boxes and send them ahead to yourself like you would on the Pacific Crest Trail. There are so many grocery stores, and if you're not super picky and don't need to have organic kale every day and are okay with going with what's available at McKay's Market or Ray's Food Place or whatever you find, you can easily get enough food every 2 or 3 days or even more often to get you down the trail. So you don't have to do advanced planning. You might want to be a little flexible. There's also often you can eat at restaurants. Some stretches, there are some long stretches without any food. So you need to stock up in Florence. You'd want to stock up in Gold Beach and some other places, but usually you don't need more than a couple or 3 days worth of food at a time. Camping on the Oregon Coast Trail is very different. I think I probably assumed this at first, and I think most people assume that if you're hiking the Oregon Coast Trail, you're going to mostly camp on the beach. And many people do, but it's illegal in many places. Don't do it in Kennedy Beach because you will get busted. Other places you could get away with it. But actually, one of the great things on the Oregon Coast Trail is hiker-biker camps in the state parks. I think there are 10 of them. What's really awesome about the hiker-biker camps is you don't need a reservation. They're super cheap, $6 to $8 for that. You get to put up your tent in kind of a group camping area that's only available to people who cycle or hike in. Hot showers that don't cost anything extra. You get to hang out with other people, great. And not needing a reservation is the key, that you can be flexible that way. So those are great. There are places where you can camp on the beach. I'm not a big fan of camping on the beach. It's very sandy, but you can. And you need to know, though, that you are not allowed to camp at a park or a state scenic viewpoint or a state anything. And many cities have laws against camping on the beach in adjacent to their city limits. So it's best to just avoid the cities. But you can camp on the beach in places. And then there's a bunch of other things. There are a couple of RV campgrounds on the South Coast that have the most amazing tent campsites. Honey Bear RV campsite down by Ophir. It's the prettiest commercial campsite I've ever been in. It's really cool. So you kind of got to do a little research. And then when you're in, and you can do dispersed camping in the dunes in Oregon Dunes National Recreation Area. So that's kind of cool. You don't have to worry about that. Camping. So next thing I want to talk about, this is Fort Stevens, by the way, is toilets. I am working on this book right now. I have a book out called Day Hiking Oregon Coast, which is mostly about day hiking, but it has a lot of tips for hiking the Oregon Coast Trail. This book I'm working on right now will be called Hiking the Oregon Coast Trail. It's specifically for backpacking and how to put the whole thing together if you want to hike the entire trail or sections of it. It could be called Toilets of the Oregon Coast because I think it's one of the most important parts of the book. Hiking the Oregon Coast Trail is not like hiking the Pacific Crest Trail. So on the Pacific Crest Trail, when you need to go, you step off the trail, get away from the trailways, you use your little handy scoop or your trowel or whatever you have to dig a hole 6 inches deep, you do your business, you cover it back up, and it's all good. It's going to decompose in the soil, everybody's fine. This is sand. There are people everywhere. You just can't just take a dump on the beach. That is just not a good idea. It's not going to decompose. There are kids flying kites, building sandcastles. So you really don't want to do that. The great thing is there are so many toilets on the Oregon coast. You don't need to worry about it. You can use a toilet. It is very helpful to know where the toilets are. They will all be in my book on the maps, all the toilets mapped out. I really want to encourage people to do that because it's just not the same as hiking in the woods. The other thing that's very different is water. there is a lot of tap water available on the Oregon coast, and I often hear from hikers who will say, hey, how are the creeks on the south coast? Are they dry? Will I be able to get water in thus and such creek? And I'm like, I personally would never get water out of a creek on the Oregon Coast Trail. And here's why. And I think people just don't think about this because we're used to doing it a different way. When you hike in the Cascades, you're in the head filter our water, but you can pull it right out of the streams. It's as clean as it can be. When you're on the Oregon coast, it is literally as dirty as it can be. It's often passed through agricultural lands and picked up pesticides. It's gone through industrial runoff. Anything that could pollute the water is in it by the time it gets to the coast. So I encourage people who are hiking the Oregon Coast Trail to just use tap water. There's tons of it. It's not a problem. You just have to do a little planning, but just get enough water every day. There's enough. It's fine. There are a few places where you're going to have to carry your water for a couple of days, like in the Oregon dunes, and further south. On the south coast, there is a big gap in where you can get water. There are toilets, but no water. So you have to do some planning around water. I just today talked to a friend of mine who literally finished the Oregon Coast Trail yesterday. She also happens to be an internist. I asked her, am I nuts about this water thing? I mean, what do you think? And she's like, oh, no, I would never drink that water. We carried our water when we needed to. So that's just a very different way of thinking about water for backpacking.
Hey, Bonnie, can I interrupt you for a second?
You can also hike end to end. What really works best is if you're doing maybe a combination of end to now. Should I stop sharing?
Can I, Bonnie, can I just interrupt you real quick? I think
yes.
You're breaking up just a little bit. Your connectivity, it's not terrible, but we're missing a little bit. If you turn your own video off, that might help. Even though I want to see you talk, but that might help a little.
I don't know how to turn my own video off while I am sharing my screen.
Okay. Oh, there you go.
Did you just do it? Cool.
So
you can still see my screen.
Yeah. All right. Great.
Okay. So hopefully I don't need to repeat my water lecture because it's very extensive.
It came through great.
We covered water thoroughly. And also I was starting to talk about hiking end to end. Very fun. You can do it, especially on the North Coast. You may have to hike some very long days. There are a lot of places where they're close together, but for instance, even on the North Coast, you're going to have to stay in Arch Cape because it's just too long a day to hike from Cannon Beach to Manzanita. I have done it. It is exhausting. Most people are going to not want to hike that far, especially that early in your hike. So you can hike end to end. It takes some planning. And as I mentioned, you do have to be prepared to hike some long days. This is south of Cape Sebastian. These hikers have already started it way on the north side of this at Gold Beach, hike down, come over Cape Sebastian, and their day is not nearly done yet. So you do have to be prepared to do some long days at this point. And then I just want to talk a little bit about crossing rivers and creeks. So there are lots of them, and a lot of them you can just hop over like this. Some you need to wade. This is somebody wading the mouth of Sand Lake, south of Cape Lookout. She is pretty lucky. It looks like the water did not get over her knees. I have waded the mouth of Sand Lake twice, and both times it was at my waist. It's it's doable. And there are a number of rivers though that you can only ford at low tide. So you have to be looking at the tide tables, obviously, but it's part of the fun, really. And you can also, a lot of rivers you just cross, a lot of bay mouths you just cross on big bridges, like at Walport and Newport and other places, Gold Beach. One of the really fun parts, though, is getting boat shuttles across. And this is, Lynette is just getting out of a boat that she took from Garibaldi. If Garibaldi Marina, hopefully they're going to stay in business and still keep shuttling hikers across. But for not too much money, they will give you a ride across Bay Ocean Spit. And without that, you have, think about a 17-mile hike along 101 and then then west. I would highly recommend getting a boat shuttle if you can. There are about 4 or 5 places where you should be able to get, it's not guaranteed, but should be able to get boat ferries. You have to generally arrange that 24 or 48 hours in advance. It doesn't always work out. It might not work out because of the weather or whatever reason. The one that's super reliable is at the mouth of the Nehalem, zipping across to Jetty Fishery, for example, or what's the other place? Kelly's Landing. At Jetty Fishery, there you can just give them a phone call and they'll just zip right over and pick you up any day. They've been doing it for decades. So I'm going to kind of wrap up. This is the end of the Oregon Coast Trail. There is no monument. You have to just watch your GPS or figure you've gone about a half mile south of Crissy Field State Recreation Site. So we drew our own line. The thing about the Oregon Coast Trail is it is definitely not a wilderness. You're often around other people, not always. There's a lot of development. There are grocery stores and restaurants. But there are some very remote parts of it, and it is definitely an adventure. You need to be careful. You need to watch the tide. You don't want to get stuck on the wrong side of a headland. It is a great adventure, and I really enjoy it. I first hiked it 12 years ago without a guidebook, but I had already written this day hiking guide, so I kind of knew all the little places. Having a guidebook is really going to make it easier, and I realize it's going to open up the Oregon Coast Trail to a lot more people, because it'll help you plan your overnight stops, help you know where and how you can get rides across bays, that kind of thing. It'll be out next fall, a year from now. So it won't be out in time for this next hiking season, but I'll be updating my website and putting a lot of updated information on it. So hopefully that'll help people tide them over. I also want to recommend another book. If you are interested in hiking the Oregon Coast Trail as a series of day hikes, Connie Soper, who lives in Manzanita and Portland, wrote a wonderful guidebook called Exploring the Oregon Coast Trail. And she hiked it as a series of day hikes. And so if that's what you want to do, it's a very nice way, a very nice guidebook to show you how to do it. It doesn't help you figure out how to string it together, where you can camp, what you're going to do when you get to highway sections. She just ignores the highway sections. So hopefully my book will fill that gap. Again, I just want to show this again. We would love to see where you're hiking. If not this weekend, once it's safe to get outside again and breathe. I hope you'll post for us, and we can all see where everybody's hiking. Okay, I think I'm going to turn it back over to Katie. So I will stop my screen share.
Awesome, thank you, Bonnie. I know there's at least one question, and I suspect there might be some others. And so if you have questions, go ahead and type them into the chat right now. And I'll start with the one that I saw from Mary. Bonnie, it says, what is your version of a long day? Is it 10 to 20 miles or what?
Yeah, that's exactly. you should be prepared to hike 10 to 20 miles. You can get by doing it. Be prepared to hike 15 miles a day. You don't have to do that every day, but it's good to be trained in to be able to do that. Yeah, that's a good estimate.
And do you recall what it is from Cannon Beach to Manzanita if you skip Arch Cape?
It's more than 20 miles.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's a really long day. It's really best to start at Arch Cape. Oh, plus a ton of elevation gain. So that's what's challenging about that day. Actually, when I did that, when I hiked from Cannon Beach to Manzanita, I skipped Neoconi Mountain.
Yeah, that was smart.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Are there any other questions before we move on to my questions? Oh yeah, here comes some. All right, let's see. Do you think the trail's well marked?
It's a lot better marked than it used to be. Way better. I mean, actually, even between like June and September of last year, there was additional signage put up. So it's pretty well marked, but that doesn't mean you're going to know. You still kind of need to know where to look. So once you're on, there are a few trails that used to be confusing once you're on the trail, but now they're pretty well marked. But knowing how to get on that trail can be a little bit difficult in some places. I don't know if that helps.
Yeah. And you touched on this a little bit, but a question about food, again, on through hikes, are people typically carrying all their food, like backpacker meals and stuff?
So you have to be prepared to carry 2 or 3 days worth if you're willing to stop at grocery stores. If you really want to have freeze-dried food or special food of some kind, you would have to carry a lot more. But if you're willing to, like, all they've got is some instant soup and some top ramen, I'm good with that for today. You know, if you can be flexible about what you get at the grocery store, then you don't need to carry a lot. And I've got to say, I think it's a real rookie mistake to try to carry too much food, especially on the Oregon Coast Trail where you don't need to, because the more weight you have, the more likely you're going to have blisters, the less fun you're going to have. So if you can be flexible about your food, stop at grocery stores every 2 to 4 days, you're going to have a way better hike.
Nice. There's a suggestion that we send out a link to your blog, which we could either get into the chat somehow, or we are going to do a follow-up with folks. I think we're sending a follow-up email, so we'll be able to get that out also.
Yes.
Is it a quick name, Bonnie?
Yeah, I'm trying to get in the chat, but I'm kind of stuck on something. Yeah, hikingtheOCT.com will take you to my blog.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And let's see, a question about repeating the name of the author. I believe it's Connie Soper.
Mm-hmm. And her book, I'll show it to you. I'll turn my video back on. This is Connie's book.
Okay.
So it's exploring the Oregon Coast Trail as opposed to mine, which will be hiking the Oregon Coast Trail.
Nice. And let's see. Are the trails that were scheduled for this weekend open to walk this weekend? Oh, so meaning like is the beach and are the state parks open? That would have been our route for this year. So I'm pretty sure. And Bonnie, you just did a little scouting at Ecola Park, right? And that one's open?
Yeah, we weren't going to hike it. I don't think they want to announce it yet, but I'm just going to tell you right now that the rebuilt trail from Indian Point Beach to Ecola Point is done. The signs might still be up because they have to do a little bit of finessing, but it's a really cool trail. We weren't going to hike it, but maybe we will next year. I don't know, this year we were gonna hike on Fort to Sea and Quees Trail in the national park. I don't know if the parks are closed. I don't think so.
I'm pretty sure it's all open.
Yeah.
I've hiked some of those trails this summer and they were open earlier in the summer. Yeah.
Let me go through real quick on some of these questions. Is that all right?
Yeah.
One was if I was going to add gaps. Yeah, definitely. The book is going to be as complete as it can be. It'll definitely have the South Neoconi extension in it. That's really super exciting. Thank you, Brandon, and everyone who worked on that. Can you count on tap water, meaning getting it? The tap water's safe, and you can definitely, you can count on its quality, and you can count on the frequency of it, except on the South Coast. And then you've got to carry some water a little bit longer. Hiking there it is, yes. Big fire, no sleds, don't go there. Bear canister, no. I would not worry about bears at all. I would worry about raccoons getting into your pack overnight, which they did to me once because I was dumb. One of the really cool things about the hiker-biker camps is most of them now, maybe all by now, they've put in these cool kiosks that have lockers where you can put your food or other stuff in. And if you're carrying a padlock, you can lock it. But I mean, even if you're not, you can just stick your food in there and keep it safe overnight. And critters are mostly a problem in developed campgrounds where they're used to getting food. And they also have cell phone charging stations. So that's awesome. Let's see. Yeah, blog post link isn't good. Okay. I have stayed at the hiker-biker camp on Tillamook Head. I think people have a lot of opinions about that. It can be weird. It's to not be weird. It also can be fine. Out by sleeping in the shelters myself, they are weird, but there's plenty of room to put up a tent. Let me see, Cheryl Lund said she had a bear sighting on her 60. Yeah, I have seen bears more than once on the Oregon coast. Every time they have run away from me very, very fast. They're not very big. Really, I'd be a lot more worried about raccoons eating my food than a bear. And do I travel with a spot travel device? I don't know what that is.
Right, cool. I think we got through all the questions.
Cool.
There was one more about the 3 trailheads for this weekend that would have been, I guess, Coast Walk 2020 trails is what I'm guessing that question is.
I think all the trails are open.
I think the question is, what are the trails?
Oh, what are they? We were going to start at the mouth of Columbia and hike down the beach. Then we were going to start at Fort Clatsop and hike out to Sunset Beach and then down to Delray. And then we were going to hike over Tillamook Head to Indian Beach. And Beth is asking about like a personal locator. I carry a cell phone, that's all I have. Yeah.
Also, is that information on the Coast Walk website? I'm gonna pop up a screen share of those tags. So that information for this year should still be up there.
Yes.
Okay.
And then there's a question about, will we do the same route next year, the one that we had planned in terms of starting from the north, very north end of the Columbia River. And so that would be our intention. But you know, the world changes every day these days. And so, so that's what some of our thinking is like, would we have to do it differently if we can't, for instance, put people sitting closely together in buses, which is the main reason that we had to cancel Coast Walk, because we can't have everybody in buses. And so those are some of the things that we have to think about going into next year. And so if all is well, yes, our plan is likely that we would do the route again.
Bonnie, what is the cell service like along the route?
I think Verizon is really pretty good from what I hear. I don't have Verizon, so it's sort of in and out. It's mostly okay. You know, it's one of those things where you can often text, but sometimes you can't call. It's just spotty, mostly because of the headlands that separate things.
Great, thank you.
All right, thanks everybody. Thanks, Bonnie. Sounds like some of you are gonna get out and hike this weekend or in the next few days, so that's awesome. I hope we get to see your pictures. So let's see, we're gonna go into our quick little round of trivia. Few prizes for all of you, because we all need to just have a little good news, right? And prizes are great. So let's see, Lynette, you wanna tell them about our prizes?
Yeah, so we have 4 prizes, and the big prize is 1 night stay at the River Inn in Seaside. There are some exclusions, but it does not expire until January of 2022, which is awesome. And that was donated by the River Inn this year as a sponsorship. So that was really generous. Then Bonnie is donating a signed copy of her Day Hiking the Oregon Coast. That's the second possible prize. And then we have 2 Coast Walk bandanas that are available. I'm going to try and show you images of that here on my PowerPoint. Trying to do multiple things at once.
I think I just put it up in it.
Okay. And then in order to answer the questions, the winners will be whoever answers the question first via the chat will get with the right answer, they will get to pick their prize of those 4 things that are available. The first person will have the option of all 4 prizes, and then the next person who identifies the correct answer will get to choose the leftover prizes. So we're just gonna kind of pick the prizes off. The last person gets what's remaining. So just use that public chat, and once we identify who the winner is, then we'll ask them what they would like.
Okay, so I think that we're going to try to put up one more picture. Is that right, Lynette? Are we going to try to get the bandana up there?
Yeah.
We're going to let you have just a little bit of help with clues from the NOCO bandana. So anyone who had signed up for Coast Walk and didn't get to go, we still sent you a bandana because we always make bandanas for participants. For those of you who haven't gone before, the reason we make bandanas for participants is so that we can see you because we want to know where our people are. And we have our little spies all along the way trying to monitor, like, where's the start, where's the end, and how many people are coming. And so we give you these bright colored bandanas that also have cool artwork on it. And so this year, Bonnie put together the wonderful No Coast Walk Oregon bandana for everybody. So I think everybody can see it now. And so get ready in your chat. Whichever one comes up correct first is the winner. So the first question is, check out the drawing of the animal on the left side of the bandana. This nearly microscopic animal is found in a wide variety of habitats on every continent and even in the ocean. What is it? Go.
We already got the answer. Amanda answered water bear.
Nice. So that cute little creature is called a water bear or a tardigrade, or maybe my favorite, a moss piglet.
Amanda, what prize do you choose? You can send that to me directly.
Nice work, Amanda. Okay, so next question. Water bears are incredibly hardy. They have been found to survive experimentally even in the vacuum of space. But scientists have recently found that tardigrades may actually be vulnerable to what global phenomena?
Global warming, I see, from Reed Drew.
All right, Reed.
So Amanda chose the overnight stay at the River Inn in Seaside. So Reed, your options are a no coast walk bandana or the signed copy of Bonnie's book.
All right.
The book.
Nice work, Reed. Yes, sadly, the tardigrade that can pretty much survive everywhere and has forever, the thing that's going to knock it out is elevated temperatures over an extended period. And so we got to keep doing conservation, folks. All right, question 3. This question relates to the little crab that you can see on the bandana. When you see crab shells on the beach, usually they're from crabs that have molted, not died. Juvenile Dungeness crabs molt up to 6 times a year. How often do adult Dungeness crabs typically molt?
Oh, Matt Lacey got it, once a year.
Just once. We had a lot of variety of answers on that one. I particularly liked 4.5. All right, Matt. So let's see. You get a Coast Walk bandana. David Chu is cracking jokes in the chat. Okay, and last one. So take a look at the tree cone on the right. Any guesses about what?
Or left, either way now.
Oh yeah, it's in both, okay. I think that everybody just answered. Any guesses as to what kind of tree this cone belongs to? I'm so proud that everybody knows this tree.
Beth.
Yay! So Beth, you get another NOCO bandana. You can gift it. Or quilt with it. Make a pillow. All right, gang. Thank you. So fun to see you all. I'm sorry that we weren't all hiking together. Look forward, very forward, to doing that again. And we miss you. And again, hope that you and your loved ones are safe and healthy, and that you all stay that way and stay in touch with us. And with that, we will say goodbye. Thanks so much, Bonnie, for your wonderful presentation. Oh, she's got one more thing.
If people have more questions about the OCT, a lot of people just contact me through my website or the blog, and feel free to ask. I love to talk to people about it. So
awesome. Thanks. Yeah. So we'll just let you sign off as you go, and you can wave and say goodbye to people as you go, and then we'll close it out at the end.
Thank you.
Bye, Bon.
Bye, Ran.